Welcome to RTS Future's Anatomy of a Hit, Celebrity Sabotage. Today, we'll be lifting the lid and spilling all the tea on this brand new and highly anticipated show. One of Lifted Entertainment's newest commissions, Celebrity Sabotage is the ultimate Saturday night primetime comedy entertainment show. It's packed with chaos, bursting with heart, and driven by a huge twist at the centre of it all. I'm your host, Laura Navarro, Senior Development Producer at Lifted, with over a decade of experience across both development and production, and I was part of the team that came up with the format. I'm very excited to be hosting this session today, having myself seen the show go on its journey from development to pilot to production to transmission over the past 2.5 years. So here's a clip of the pre-titles for episode 1 to introduce the show.
Welcome to the Manor House, the ultimate setting for a reality game show like no other. This sprawling estate is the home of 6 brand new TV shows.
Welcome to Couple Goals.
Welcome to the applicant.
Well, hello, players. Welcome to the backstabber.
Each with its own set of real contestants.
Oh my word.
Do you all understand?
Yes, sir! Right, shall we?
But what none of them know is that all of these shows are totally fake.
Are you joking?
Oh my God, are you joking, mate?
That's because hidden in the basement is Mission HQ, home to an elite team of celebrity saboteurs. Each week they are joined by a brand new celebrity guest saboteur and a different fake show host. Together, their mission is to sabotage the fake show and build up a secret prize fund for the contestants to share, worth up to £30,000. And there's only one rule.
Don't get caught! So get down, get down, get down, get down, get down! No!
Oh, Tony, go back!
Celebrity captured.
Let's cause some chaos.
Tonight, legendary comedian Joe Brand joins Mission HQ.
Put your visor down.
As the celebrities take on their very first fake show, The Applicant, hosted by entrepreneur extraordinaire Sarah Davies.
How much poo did you need?
Get ready for madness, mind games,
Oh my God.
and mayhem.
I look like Shrek.
Get your ball and just sit.
This is Celebrity Sabotage.
Today, we're very lucky to be joined on the panel by some of the amazing talent that shaped the show, both on-screen and off-screen. Diego Rincón, Lifted Entertainment's director of Unscripted and a multiple BAFTA-winning showrunner, Diego has played a major role in shaping the unscripted TV landscape, with standout hits including Anton Deck's Saturday Night Takeaway, Michael McIntyre's Big Show, and The Great British Bake Off. Catherine Saint, line producer, who has worked on a number of Lifted hits, including Love Island, I'm a Celebrity, My Mum, Your Dad, and the landmark music documentary Adam Lambert, Out Loud and Proud. Paul Newton, director, known for shaping some of the UK's most successful unscripted entertainment formats, including Love Island, Next Level Chef, and Netflix's Too Hot to Handle. Bex Taylor, senior casting producer, whose credits span major Saturday night entertainment shows, including Saturday Night Takeaway, The X Factor, Strictly Come Dancing, and All Round to Mrs. Brown's. And last, but definitely not least, you'll know him as the host of The Masked Singer, I'm a Celebrity Unpacked, the National Television Awards, and Comic Relief. It's presenter, comedian, and now celebrity saboteur, Joel Dommett. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Diego, I'll come to you first. How would you describe Celebrity Sabotage for someone who hasn't seen it?
Well, I think that pre-titles does a pretty good job of sort of setting the scene, but ultimately it's a brand new comedy entertainment hybrid reality show within a show, game show, where a group of hidden celebrities, including Joel, are tasked with sabotaging a group of contestants who come to our manor house thinking they're taking part in a brand new reality show. And every week it's a different reality show and different contestants. But what they don't know, what none of them know, is that the shows are completely fake. And the celebs are set missions of sabotage to make everything go wrong, and it's all to win them as much money as possible. So that's sort of the format. But ultimately, it's just a really chaotic, hilarious, mischievous, but super heartwarming, multi-layered reality comedy show And like I said, at the heart of it is loads of mischief, but also a lovely reward where people get rewarded with money they didn't even know they were going to win.
Perfect. And Diego, tell us about your role. What does it involve exactly, and what did it entail on Celebrity Sabotage?
So as the sort of one of the execs and showrunner and CD had multiple hats on for this show, you kind of feed into every element of the production right from the inception. So alongside with you, Laura, we were there right from the inception of the development of the show, and piloting it with Joel and some of the gang. And then once we're into production, I have to be involved with budgeting it with Catherine and the production management team. There's staffing it and overseeing that and putting all the team together and deciding who that's going to be alongside network as well. Signing off on all the casting, which Bex and her team brought to the table. You also steer the creatives of the mission. So you have a production team who put together all the challenges, and you sort of you let them obviously crack on with the day to day, but you just give them steers and ideas of like, have you thought of this? And always trying to push everything as far as you possibly can, within the confines of a budget. And then once we were on the shoot, I was running. So we had a gallery, which is where Paul and I lived, and our other exec, and it was kind of split in two. We had one half of the gallery was running the fake shows and making sure they were all running exactly as they should, and the contestants didn't expect anything. And then we had the other half, which is what I was running, was Mission HQ, where Joel and the celebs lived. So speaking to the celebs in their ears, briefing them on what was coming up, kind of producing that element of it. So you had, and sometimes you could have the fake show and the real show in both your ears at the same time, and the celebs talking to you and production talking to you. So it was kind of like having a nervous breakdown every day, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And then the final bit is obviously taking it into the edit. We have a whole post-production team. So I would oversee the sort of sign off of the cuts and final post-production, that's all the grading and dubbing, so the sound mix and color correction. And I did the VO sessions with Siobhan McSweeney, who's our amazing VO artist, and Simon Bird, our incredible voice of Mission HQ. So kind of putting all the bells and whistles on it. So really, it's a kind of real 360 from start to finish on this show.
Gosh, busy man. How did you get to this role? What was your career journey up to this point?
I, like probably the majority of people who work in telly, I started as a runner. I started as a runner in post-production because I wanted to be an editor. And then I saw these guys living in windowless rooms, and I thought, I don't want to live in a windowless room. So then I got a job on the Johnny Vaughan Tonight chat show, showing my age. And that's the first intro. I know, right? I know. And that was my first ever stepping into a live studio environment. And I was absolutely hooked from that moment. Once I saw literally the lights and the cameras and being part of that sort of churn of live TV, I just thought this is exactly what I want to do. And from there, I went through so there's two routes, really, not strictly, but there's the production management route, which is where Catherine Saint and her team come in. And there's the editorial route, which is your researchers, assistant producers, producers. Then there's obviously also what Paul does, which is directing and crew. So sort of the three main areas of production. I always knew I wanted to be more editorial. And that was just working on as many different shows, many different companies, going through researcher, AP, producer. I was a director, not as successful as Paul, but for a while, for about 3 or 4 years. And then senior producer, series producer, exec, CD. That's 30 years in 30 seconds.
Ashton, coming to you next. What is a line producer, and what did you actually have to do on the show?
So yes, a line producer. I manage a team really of production managers, coordinators and secretaries, as well as the production runners on the show. I oversee the production on a day-to-day basis, but critically, it's planning ahead to ensure that the show runs smoothly, to ensure that we're being as safe as possible, that we're keeping things on schedule and within budget. My role involves communicating with lots of different departments at ITV. So we've got people like the duty of care teams, the legal teams, health and safety. And then there's all the sort of on-show departments as well, sort of the camera team, lighting team, art department, just to ensure that everybody's creative vision is the same, and they're keeping up with all the developments. So it's really important for us to hear back from those departments to ensure we're scheduling the days of filming properly, and that we're resourcing and costing things as they should be. As a team, we also work across the location. On this one particularly, we were filming at a manor house. So we had to make sure that the crew, the talent, and the contributors could all get to site, and that they all stayed locally. So it's all of those sort of logistics that come into it, as well as sort of where they're based when they're on site, that they've got a working position for them, and that everybody knows where to find everybody else.
Amazing. And how did you get into the industry?
So yeah, same as Diego. Started as a runner, but I did actually a work experience placement first off at the BBC in Manchester, working on Dragon's Den. So I was a student up there, and every day I'd walk along Oxford Road and see BBC Manchester and wonder what was inside. And I applied, and about 9 months later, I heard from them, and they wanted me to come in for a chat originally, and then I got offered a placement for 4 weeks. I told my tutor at the time, who wasn't particularly impressed, that I was going to take 4 weeks out of my course, to be perfectly honest. But I just knew, like, this was such a window of opportunity that just isn't going to open again. So I just grabbed it and really, really enjoyed it. And they ended up offering me a studio runner job on the back of that down at Pinewood Studios for their filming run. And that got me into a kind of pool of people then. So I was always, just called up. Are you available this weekend? Can you do some day running here? And I got a job at a post-production house just as a stable job as a facilities assistant. And that was really helpful as well, to learn about the back end of production. But it kept me in with those sort of weekend works as well. So eventually I got the call for a production secretary role on The Weakest Link, which I accepted. And that kind of built my momentum down the production route. So it wasn't really a choice, to be honest. It was kind of made for me, and I just went with the flow. And I found my home at ITV on Saturday Night Takeaway, having worked at lots of independent companies and doing lots of events and TV work. I even worked on the Olympics at some point. And yeah, I found my home on Saturday Night Takeaway, and I've stayed at ITV since then.
Fab. Paul, I mentioned in your intro that you're a director. What does that actually look like on a show like this?
Yeah, so whenever I'm asked this question, the best analogy is sort of comparing it to a conductor of an orchestra, but instead of musicians doing that live performance, you replace them with kind of every department on a production that is involved in making the TV show. So, you've got cameras, sound, lighting, presenters, contributors, and hopefully they're all working in harmony to your voice so that you can bring that kind of creative vision that you've kind of planned with all the execs together. And turn it into a fully rounded package show. So on Celebrity Sabotage, that kind of meant that I was in the gallery, obviously with Diego and all the other gallery team. I'm communicating constantly over the comms to camera departments, all the technical teams, obviously exec producers, editorial, the games team, kind of looking 2-3 steps ahead, and obviously directing in the moment any of the kind of the action that happens. Obviously, Celebrity Sabotage, we kind of gave the sabotage to the celebs, but we didn't know how they were going to carry out that sabotage. So it's basically being able to pivot, adjust your coverage. And obviously a big factor for Celebrity Sabotage was making sure that the celebs in HQ could see live pictures so that they could effectively kind of, direct the sabotage to the best that they possibly can. So having that live picture feed and being able to direct the cameras to give Joel and co the shots that they want, like how far away is the bush that they're hiding in to the contestants, all that kind of relationship geography just enabled the celebs in HQ to carry out the sabotages. So that's essentially was my role on Celeb Sabotage.
Great. And lots of people wanting to join the industry always want to be directors. So how did you find your way into directing?
Well, I, shock horror, wasn't a runner. I actually pivoted. I went to a broadcasting college called Ravensbourne. I dropped out of uni. I was like, what do I want to do? I want to work in TV or radio. So I found a place at Ravensbourne College, which has kind of got good connections with the TV industry. And essentially, when I started there, a production company called Endemol came around, and they were starting this revolutionary new show called Big Brother, and that's showing my age. And they wanted essentially, kind of broadcast experience crew that were cheap to come and work on this new show, Big Brother. And essentially that just blew open the door. So I managed to get a job operating the hotheads, which is kind of the remote control cameras in the Big Brother house on series 1. And from there, that was my foot into the door. By series 3, I was what's called gallery directing. So I was basically directing the cameras inside the Big Brother house. And that's kind of, for the next 10 years, I did my 10,000 hours of directing all these kind of reality shows that were filmed in a similar vein to Big Brother. So Endemol made loads of shows like that: Fame Academy, The Match, The Salon, Big Brother. I worked on all of those, directed loads of those, and then essentially fast forward, I moved out of London. I kind of wanted to work outside of reality TV. I was looking for other avenues. I managed to get in with the BBC. I series directed Dragon's Den, amongst the loads of other studio shows, Blue Peter, Question of Sport. And then ITV came calling again, and I was trials director on I'm a Celeb. So I did that for 13 years. And then ITV, because obviously I love working with ITV, they said, we're bringing this show called Love Island to the screens. Do you want to come and series direct that? And that was in 2015. So again, I kind of found myself at the start of like a new amazing format. And basically, since then I've been kind of doing a lot of shows that open the doors in the similar vein of Love Island. And nowadays I do a lot of big studio entertainment, a lot of first formats actually. So I'm there. I've kind of given myself kind of a proving ground of creating and helping establish new formats. So hopefully Celebrity Sabotage is going to be one of those big kind of formats that everyone will recognize going forward.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Wow. And Bex, we've heard you're the queen of casting. What does casting involve in a show like this?
Well, firstly, that is literally the title on my CV, Bex Taylor, Queen of Casting. So thank you. No, so for this, it's very much obviously it's called Celebrity Sabotage, but the celebs need people to sabotage. So it's finding people that are big characters, big fun, who enjoy watching this sort of show that we just know would love to hopefully be a part of this show because they don't know what they're taking part in actually. So we were just finding people that we knew fit the fake show well enough to fully believe that, yeah, that I am on a show about dogs and my dog's amazing and can do loads of tricks. Yeah, of course I'd be on a TV show about it. Actually, you're not, but they still love it. So it was just finding confident, fun people that loved ITV, love the shows that we do. Probably actually the two questions we used to ask them are like, what are your favourite shows? They like Antidex Takeaway or Masked Singer, things like that, just to make sure, yeah, they love Joel Dommett. They're going to be thrilled when he comes out. And that was one of our questions actually to ask them.
Nice. And how did you get into casting?
So I've been so I originally got into telly because I either thought I wanted to work in telly or on telly. And then I got offered a job after I didn't quite get onto a BBC for like a development what's it called? Like a development scheme. There were 8 places and I got the 9th place, which didn't exist. But they're like, it was Kate Phillips, who's actually Chief Content Officer at BBC, actually then said, I would love you to work as a runner in the department instead. But on the same day that I got offered that, I got offered the role of Bob the Builder in a touring show. And I really had to make a call on what I wanted to do. So unfortunately for Bob anyway, said goodbye to that and then decided I'll go behind the cameras instead. And then so I started off running in as like a production runner and then went on to like the X Factor and a few shows like that. And by the time I got to researcher, people would say, do you know what, if you can do casting, you'll never be out of a job. And I was like, that sounds good to me. So let's do a casting job. And since then, I've pretty much, I dabble in a few things, but predominantly casting is, as queen of casting, my bread and butter. And then, yeah, I got into this sort of side of things with Saturday Night Takeaway. I'd worked on an undercover thing with Diego with Take That for a Suzuki advert, and then went on to Saturday Night Takeaway, which all lends itself to this very much undercover. I've basically been lying to people for the past 5 years of my working life. So I also just wouldn't trust anything that I say.
Fair. And Joel, tell us about your role on Celebrity Sabotage. You were sort of like a lead saboteur.
I was one of the lead saboteurs. I'll take that. You can call me the queen of saboteurs if you want to. But I was one of the gang that was in Mission HQ performing these sabotages and these missions on these unsuspecting people. And first of all, can I say this is absolutely fascinating for me? I'm genuinely enjoying this so much. It's so I've worked with some of the people on this panel for probably more than 10 years, and I've been so rude that I've never asked them how they got to where they are today. So this is absolutely fantastic for me. And it's really, really interesting. But it's yeah. So it's one of those jobs where it's lovely to hear sort of everyone's sort of piece of the pie of what they've been doing to put this all together. But it's one of those jobs where even though we are in front of the camera, we were sort of almost behind the scenes of it too. So it's one of those jobs where you really, as a contributor, you also really got to see the layers and the hard work of everyone that was working in the team. So usually I wouldn't necessarily see as much of Diego. I wouldn't necessarily, see the fact that you go into the gallery because it's right next door, and you get to talk to Bex, and you talk to all these people who are involved in the directors a lot more. So it was fascinating from my perspective, being in this industry for so long, and then suddenly seeing a slightly new angle because it's such a new format. But yeah, basically, it was my job to try and cause as much chaos as possible, whilst also I think Diego would back me up on this one. I was sort of also a second AD with the cast.
Yes.
Because
I gave you a lot of instructions that I wouldn't give any of the other celebs.
There would be very much a lot of the time it was me just going, okay, Sam, come on, lunchtime's over, let's get everyone in, come on, microphone's on, is everyone okay, everyone? Because there's so much going on that that everyone has to help everyone to try and get everyone in place. But I genuinely enjoyed being a part of this show. I think it felt really exciting and new and fresh, and to work on, and hopefully to watch as well. So it's been great.
And tell us, how did you get here to become a celeb saboteur? What was your career journey?
So I suppose I started off originally, I was a stand-up comedian. I've been doing stand-up now for 20 years, just about. And so I just sort of was working my way up the ladder in that, just really enjoying doing that, doing Edinburgh every year. And this is sort of before social media. Again, I'm going to say, like everyone else, I'm showing my age. And then slowly but surely got into television shows, worked up, did MTV News, and then a show which I think there's sort of a piece of a show that I've done before in this show called Impractical Jokers, which was on BBC Three, and I think that was like 12, 13 years ago. And I remember Anton Deck coming to me and being like, I love that show, it's so great. And they took a piece of that and made it amazing on Saturday Night Takeaway with Diego. And then I think there's a heart of that in this too. And then that was sort of my first little break with Impractical Jokers. And then I was given, I think quite last minute, a place in I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here in 2016. And, I think I sort of went in like a fairly unknown person. And so there was nothing to lose really. And it was great for me. And I came second behind Scarlett Moffat, and that sort of got me into the ITV family too. And since then, I've just sort of tried my best to stay in telly.
Done a pretty good job of that. So
yeah, really enjoyed it.
Here's a question for everyone. Because the success of the show relies on keeping the central ruse alive, what within each of your roles was the biggest thing that you personally had to be careful not to give away? So, Catherine, I'll start with you.
I think for this, the biggest challenge was the filming days themselves. The numbers of people involved in the show would suddenly explode. When we were in the production team, when we were prepping in the office, we were quite a tight little unit, and we understood exactly what we were doing. And this was our day job. This is all we do, all we're focusing on. But when you've got people like catering coming in and drivers coming in, dropping people off, and all these different departments from audio, cameras, who have lighting, who have all been somewhere else the day before, it was quite crucial to try and articulate the ruse to everybody involved. And the simplest way of doing that was to kind of not say much at all. It's kind of, I think that's probably is the simplest thing. Call sheets were sent out with the fake show name. Crew were just given generic ITV passes, and told to say that if any contributor asked them, we're filming RX1 of a brand new format, and that's all they need to tell them. Because, Bex and her team were very much the channel of communication with the contributors, and And everyone else, I think, was quite happy to step away so that they didn't mess it up for everyone. I think everyone was quite invested by the end to make sure that they kept the ruse safe.
And Bex, how was that for you? What did you have to be extra careful of?
Well, with the casting of it, we sort of had to initially sort of say we're a generic ITV casting team. We're casting loads of different projects at the moment. Like, let's have a chat and then we can put you forward for a show that you might be suitable for. But we'd get chatting to people about one show and realize, oh my God, they would be perfect for this show. They've got a dog that can do loads of cool tricks. So we'd end up pivoting and being like, actually, there's another show that my colleague's making at the moment. I think you could be perfect for. I'm gonna pass your details over to them, and if you're happy to talk to them, and then literally pass it to the person sitting next to me. I'm like, hi, I've been passed your details from Bex at ITV, and you'd end up having to remember what show they know about. And when you're calling them, because there's so much sort of diligence and stuff that goes into this with sort of background checks and welfare and things like that, when you're talking to the contributor, you have to know, right, you are for this specific show, this is what you think is happening, and just keep an eye on what everybody is saying everywhere. But like Catherine said, make sure all the communication would go through us because we just, yeah, it's better for them to not talk to as many people on the crew because that's how things would get out, really.
Yeah. Joel, how about you?
Yeah, so I think the main sort of thing was to be seen from our side. So obviously the crew could be seen in various different ruses, but for us, we were sort of squirreled away in hidden either. We had this like these little tiny like apartments on site, and then or most of the time just in HQ in this garage. Essentially, we spent sort of 6 weeks in a garage in Croydon, and it was I realized after finishing filming how important vitamin D is. It's very important. But that was our way of sort of staying secret. Even at lunch, we went up and we had to sort of shut ourselves in this thing. But we all really got into it because we knew how important that was, especially after we finished the first episode. We realized that secret reveal of money to the contestants it's such a lovely part of this format, which is such a surprise for them, and it really is amazing to make them feel like, oh my God, there's like surprise after surprise. They're like, oh, there's these people. Oh my God, oh my God, I've won money. It's like there's so many layers to it. It's such a great ending to the show. So we knew how important it was that we were squirreled away. So.
Well, undercover agents there.
Yeah.
And Diego, how about you? What did you have to be careful not to give away?
So I sort of took the coward's way out, and basically there's two shows going on, right? So you've got the fake show and the real show, like we've talked about, and people like Bex and a lot of the team are dealing with the people who only know about the fake show, whilst also knowing about the real show and having to sort of dissect those things in your brain. So I just basically never spoke to anyone from the fake show ever, so that I wouldn't get caught out. So, and also I just thought they've been chatting to Bex and her casting team and the field producers. If they suddenly see someone coming out of a door of a building that they've never seen before, it might just raise questions that you don't want to sort of have to answer. So I purposely kind of stayed out of the way of anything to do with the contributors and anything to do with the fake show, just purely so that I wouldn't say the wrong thing. Because I just didn't want them questioning anything. And as for the celebs, and for Joel and the gang, we didn't want them to know too much. I think so much of the beauty and the joy of it is, like Paul said, is us not really knowing how they were going to go about taking on these sabotages. So it was very neat to know, even for them. We'd give them a very sort of vague outline of like, here's the kind of mission. And obviously, like if there's a costume, they'd need to know to fit into that. But other than that, you didn't want to dilute a genuine reaction that you wanted to get on camera. You wanted that to be the real thing the first time they experienced it, the first time they saw the costume, the first time the garage door opens and they have to be faced with the sabotage. So even, the core saboteurs were on a need to know basis a lot of the time.
And Paul, was that similar for you? Were you also squirreled away?
Yeah, exactly the same. I did not want the responsibility of having anything to do with the contestants. So just like Diego, we kind of stayed in our storeroom, which was next to the garage, but our storeroom had a window, so at least we got a little bit of vitamin D. But the added complication with that is sometimes the window would be right next to a place where they're about to carry out a sabotage. So, and it was boiling hot when we were filming it. So we had the windows kind of cracked open a little bit. We had all these fans going on in the gallery just to cool all the crew down, because there was probably like 50 people crammed into this storeroom. And then when sabotages were happening near the window, I'd be like, guys, keep it down, keep it down. So yeah, just didn't want to have anything to do with the real, the fake show contestants. So just made sure I was away. And then obviously like briefing crew, I would do that first thing in the morning before the contestants arrived on set. So, you know, this is where we think they're going to hide. This is what the missions will be today. So kind of fully briefing the crew before the contestants even get on site, just to eliminate any kind of risk of being seen briefing or pointing at a bush when I shouldn't have been.
And Diego, you've overseen some of the biggest entertainment formats on TV. So what felt new or creatively risky about this one?
I think Joel touched upon it a little bit in an earlier answer, but what I loved about this in particular is that there's a lot of it that feels really familiar in a really warm way, yet completely brand new at the same time. And that's a really unique blend and rare blend to get right. You know, it purposely has elements from lots of shows that we all grew up watching and we all loved. And Joel's right, even in Practical Jokers, and that sort of history of Saturday night entertainment, and a lot of that DNA was fed into this. But it's that show within a show layer that felt really original, that I feel like I'd seen in this kind of sort of broad entertainment show. You know, it sort of feels clever without being look at me clever or complicated. You know, there are layers to it, but it's not difficult to understand what's going on. And I think after years of doing live TV, I love live TV and I really miss not doing live TV, but especially doing takeaway for many years. I love formats that lean into unpredictability and chaos and have that element of live. I mean, it felt almost like running a live gallery, even though it's a pre-recorded show, because we'd just set these hairs running and we'd just be sitting there like going, oh my God, don't get caught. Oh God, no, he's in a bush, you know, and you're out of control at that point. It's just down to the celebs and it's down to the contestants. But I sort of thrive on that madness, because then if you're excited watching it, you know it's going to be exciting as a viewer watching it as well. So I think, you know, there are some brilliant pre-recorded shows now, but often, even on Takeaway, we'd sometimes get accused of like, well, it's not live, is it? Because it's too polished. You know, I think if you make things overly polished and not authentic and produced to the point of feeling staged, audiences have become savvier to that. They want authenticity. So I think anything for me where it feels like the show can go off the rails at any moment is kind of like a lovely place to be. I love when things are just slightly out of control, because I think that creates some great entertainment.
I think just to add to that, Diego, I think there's something that's really important with this format, which I think makes it really maybe unintentionally, but maybe intentionally special, is that because I can't think of a hidden camera show that's got the layer of people thinking that they're already on a television show. And so it really helps being involved in Saturday Night Takeaway, and also being involved in Practical Jokers and doing hidden camera shows before. There is an element when you watch those to a degree where you're like, oh, these people don't know they're on telly. Whereas this, just there's something in your heart that feels more relaxed, because they already think they're on telly, but they just don't know what telly they're on. And so it makes first of all, again, with Bex, with the contributors, it feels like they're more accepting to what's happening, but they understand that they're just a bit weirded out by it. And so their reaction is much more accepting, but really still really funny. And I think that's kind of weirdly the secret to this show, is that everyone is accepting to the madness while going along with it and being like, this isn't telly, weird. And it just is such funny reactions.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because actually I always hasten to call it a hidden camera show, because it's not. The cameras are out in the open. Everyone knows they're on camera, but tonally it feels like hidden camera because they don't know what's actually going on. So creatively that felt different. It's like, oh, we're kind of in that world, but actually we're in a new world. So it was a lovely hybrid of two worlds, which we all, in all the shows, respective shows we've worked, have done, but not bringing them together in this way.
Yeah, absolutely. And Diego, because the show walks such a fine line between chaos and heart, how did you protect that tone that you talked about when there are so many moving parts?
I think this isn't probably exclusive to this show. I think it's exclusive to the way I like to produce shows, is you probe and question every single creative decision. And you're constantly going, is this mission funny enough? Is it risky enough? Is it too risky? can it be funnier? Ultimately, for me, like someone in my career once upon a time said funny trumps everything. And I think that's true when you make these shows. Like you have to go, can it be funny? Can it be riskier? Can it be more dangerous? Or will it feel too mean? Are we going too far? Actually, you can go too far and go to Joel's point. You're like, you don't want people going, oh, this is uncomfortable. This is heavy. I don't want to watch this. So it was always sort of trying to stay true to the heart of what this show's trying to be, which is really mischievous, but with a warm heart. And are the challenges realistic enough? This whole thing has to be believable. They have to completely genuinely believe they're on a cooking show or a business competition show. So again, are we making the fake show real enough? Or is it feeling too unbelievable? There has to be also enough opportunities to sabotage. The show is called Celebrity Sabotage. So in development, we discounted a lot of fake shows, which would have been really fun to spoof because they weren't sabotageable. For a number of reasons, it's like it's going to be too difficult to sabotage because the contestants will be too static, or it just won't be fun enough, or the kind of contestants you might need for casting, it's not quite the right, you just want people who want to have fun being on telly. So there was loads of elements that we were constantly questioning all the time. And constantly at the core of any decision, it's like, will it make me laugh? Will it be tense and dramatic to watch? And if it's both of those things, then it probably made it into the final thing.
And you mentioned when coming up with those fake shows that you've got to have something that the viewers can instantly get the genre wise. So that sort of inform it as well. So you might have familiar feeling fake shows, but they're not sabotageable. So finding that perfect balance and criteria.
Yeah, I think it was important to, like I said, we discounted a lot of shows because we wanted worlds that instantly felt recognizable. There's already a show within a show. You didn't want the fake show to be something you have to overly explain what's going on. If you just go, we're in a cooking show, great, I know exactly what world I'm in. I don't need to know any more information than that. I see some cooking stations and a tent, and then the sabotaging can kind of take precedence over everything. If the fake show became too complicated, I was like, well, you've lost me already and would lose the viewers. So as soon as you go, I'm in a cooking show, I'm in a business, and also people go, oh, that's a bit like The Apprentice. So, oh, that's a bit like SAS Who Dare Survives. I know that world. I'm familiar with it. I can now enjoy and laugh at the spoofing that we're doing as well.
Yeah. Joel, we noticed that the celebs got really into the fake shows because they're so convincing, so juicy. Did you have a favorite one? Was there any that you were like, I'd watch this or I'd host this?
Oh, I'll happily host anything, to be honest. But they were all brilliantly put together. But I think the one that I felt the scope of was the SAS version of the show with Foxy hosting it, which was just so brilliant because it felt like we were using the whole location. We went really far out. We went into the woods, and there was lots of, there was. We had like full assault courses. We used the lake. They used the whole thing, which was again a brilliant part of the show where it's so rare that you go to a location where you use every inch of the land and the house and upstairs and in the basement and the garage. It's like everything. And that ending, which I think you're going to show at some point, but where we sort of reveal ourselves and we come in with the tank and with the trucks and everything like that. And it was just the scope of it just felt so huge. And it's also just it's fun to be in a tank, isn't it? Really.
So and this sort of plays to Bex's world. I think one thing that we also were really conscious of was managing the contestants' expectations about what they thought they were winning at the end of each show. And so in the development as well, any shows where you think you're going to win a job or you think some life-changing prize, we're like, it can't be that because then they'll be disappointed by the actual thing. They needed to go in thinking, I'm just playing for a little trophy or I'm just playing to be the best baker. Like something that was actually not good enough for them, but nowhere near as good as the thousands of pounds they're going to be walking away from. So that was a really important factor as well.
But what was really important, I think, with that was that like that element of it was so important to them. And I think when we were all watching all of those shows, it became so apparent that just being in a cooking show and cooking a really good meal on television was so important to them. And so that it came across in their passion for what they were doing. And then when they get given money at the end, it's just like bamboozles them. It's like, it's so fun.
But even on the cooking show, I mean, I don't know if any of the trophies made it in, but even after they've done the reveal and they've won, one of the contestants, Anne, was like, can I actually take the trophy? Like, who won the trophy? Like, she genuinely cared about who won the trophy still.
Bex, which of the fake shows did you enjoy casting for the most?
I would say they were all so fun and complicated in their own ways. I think probably the Backstabber, because there was a little bit more freedom with it. With like the applicant, they had to have some sort of business brain or be interested somehow, or the couples had to be in a couple, dogs had to have a dog, cooking you had to be able to cook, whereas back and have the fitness for the fitness for the SAS one, but the Backstabber was just about good fun people that you might see on a show like that, so we got to really have fun with it. And actually one of the people we'd originally had in line up for another show, and then we were like, nope, you're better in this one. So yeah, I think the Backstabber for sure.
And how was casting for Celeb Sabotage different to your normal casting process? Obviously, there's the element of they don't know what show they're on, but was there anything else you
Yeah.
had to keep in mind, personality traits, things
Yeah,
like that?
well, like you say, normally you cast a show, they know what show they're taking part in, they know everything. So this was very different. What was most different was actually it was like casting six different series at once, because you've got to have people for like each single one is so different. There's only some that could be movable. Like we had a handful of people that you thought, okay, they've got an interest in cooking, but they also could be good in Backstabber. And they also happen to have a dog as well. So there were some that could have gone in any show. But it was very much, yeah, it was like casting six different series at once, and the brain capacity to that. We come into a casting meeting and be like, what show are we casting today? Right, we're doing couples today. We're in the couples mode. So yeah, it was crazy. But in terms of all like the things like welfare and all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes that a lot of people don't really necessarily think about, that was very much the same. That was still at the forefront of our mind. We had to know that everybody taking part would be happy to take part, would be happy with the reveal. Like we said, they can't have been wanting to do it for fame or money. It was literally a trophy. And then being out on location with them, looking after them the whole entire time, with their welfare at the forefront of our mind, you know. And then a big difference is everyone on a TV show gives their consent to be on a TV show. They sign a release form like, yep, I know that I'm on this show, that's fine. But with this show, as soon as the reveal happened, it suddenly was a different show that they had agreed to be a part of. So Joel would do the reveal, they'd be like, you've won this amount of money. Everyone's like, oh my God, that's amazing. Hug, hug, hug. And then it'd be like, welfare team, get in there and check in on them as we come in. Like, guys, how exciting! How are you? How are you feeling? Are you still happy to be a part of this TV show? And everyone like had the best time. So in terms of like, yeah, the welfare and all the processes were very much the same, but the actual casting of it under a ruse, very, very different.
Joel, did you worry about how some of the contestants might react when you revealed you've been pranking them?
Yeah, I suppose we worried on the first one. We were we were so unknown, so we didn't really know how they were going to react to it, and they all reacted so well that then we sort of started to understand what, like I said, what it meant to them. But it is difficult sometimes because you realize that when they go, oh no, these people have been watching us the entire time in a way that and they, especially on the first episode, when they really go down into HQ and they see the screens, they see the way that we've been watching them from afar. And sometimes, in the fake shows, it gets quite intense for them. And when they feel like they're not delivering in the fake show the way that they thought because of all this mad stuff that keeps going wrong. We had a few tears from people, and again, it must have been so difficult for you guys for the production side to make sure it stayed on the right side of making the fake show feel like it's got a bit of tension there, so it makes it feel like a format, but not so much tension that it feels like horrible for them. And so there's so many layers to it all. And I just so it must have been so difficult. What I like about the whole thing is that when I see it, it's like I know because I've been so involved in it how many layers there is to all of these things. And there's a show within a show, and then there's sort of weirdly another show around it, and then it's quite complicated to explain it if you want to explain the whole thing. But also, what's brilliant about this show is it's so simple in it's just so fun to watch. So you kind of get carried along with how fun it all is. So it's kind of like it's as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. It's like Shakespeare. Is that a good metaphor? I don't really know Shakespeare enough to make that metaphor, but do you know what I mean?
There was definitely, it's made it into the edit on a few of the shows. You could see all you guys in Mission HQ going, "Oh, we're gonna ruin their bake. Oh God, and then you have to remind yourselves, we're doing it for the money. They're gonna win some money." Then I could see that thought process in your heads where you felt like instinctively, I don't want to do this because it's going to muck things up for them. And then you go, but remind ourselves why we're doing it because of the lovely reveal at the end. So.
Absolutely. And Paul, from a directing point of view, as we've heard, the show's very complex and you're directing a show within a show. How did you even begin to approach that?
You've just got to be very good at multitasking and like thinking 3 steps ahead. It is like spinning 3 plates at once, and it's constantly, there's the show within the show, and then there's the live feed, and then there's obviously technical stuff. Because, like to Joel's point, we were using the whole estate. So from a technical point of view, pictures would drop out, things like that. We'd lose signal from cameras because they were just so physically far away. So you're just kind of firefighting, planning ahead as much as you can, and then just being an awesome multitasker in the moment. Basically, that's all you can do, because lots of planning and allowing the celebs to be able to do whatever they want while still being able to cover it. And to the point of like the fact of it being a hidden camera show or not, my philosophy was hiding the cameras in plain sight. So like Joel said, obviously they know that they're in a show. So I was just kind of speccing the cameras slightly differently. So using long zoom lenses. So even if they think we're filming them, we're actually focusing on the detail behind them and things like that. So little tricks where, it was quite liberating that we didn't have to hide too many cameras. We just had to like think about the coverage and maximizing the amount of coverage that all our remote cameras and camera operators could get. So yeah, a lot going on.
And what was different about directing a fake show versus a real one? Or were they quite similar?
Well, nothing really, because you've got to do a service to the fake show. And obviously, like to Diego's point, like I wanted to direct it with a familiarity so that the viewers at home could sort of settle in and go, "Oh, okay, yeah, I know what I'm watching here." You don't have to ram it down the viewer's throat. Like, this is an SAS show, or this is a baking show, or this is a business show. So the way we covered, or the way we kind of planned to cover all of the fake shows were kind of in homage to the way that they were, the things like The Apprentice and stuff were filmed anyway. So obviously at that point of filming, I wasn't sure like how much or little content of the fake show was going to make it into the final edit. So I didn't want to cut any corners. So you've just got to basically like film the fake show as well as you would do if it was the show. So yeah, that's the answer to that basically.
And Catherine, the show's so multi-layered. How complex was the planning and scheduling the show within the show? And how did you and your team approach the planning of the series?
Exactly. Well, we had 2 schedules essentially that we operated simultaneously. So one schedule is pretty much what you'd expect to see from a production schedule. You'd have your department call times on there, your catering times, and people would know what they're doing. And then there would just be large blocks on that schedule that just said filming, which didn't have a lot of detail at all. But that's when the secondary schedule would kick in. And that took an enormous amount of planning. Essentially, it was a schedule that was written in 5-minute blocks. And beat by beat, every moment of the fake show was recorded on that schedule, as well as the layer of sabotage that was happening over the top of it. So when the announcement was made in HQ about the task, when the celebrity needed to be in wardrobe, when they needed to move into position. And so all of that was sort of beat by beat. So to have those 2 schedules working simultaneously, it just meant we had to constantly have our eye on the schedule, see where we were timing wise. But also as well, leaning into the points made earlier, allowing freedom for just chaos to ensue, and just rolling with the punches, really, because you never really want to interrupt anything when it's happening and making amazing telly.
Absolutely. Joel, did you have a favorite disguise or favorite mission? Was it one of the most chaotic or sneaky?
My favorite one, I think, and it's a really simple one actually, but I just think it was really early on, so I really remember it. Was I had to dress up as a cleaner for the cooking show, and so I had this wig on, and I had this full disguise and full outfit, and then I had this trolley that I went into the baking tent, into the cooking tent, which is again, it's not very often that you fully in their space. So we were in their space, and you're right up close to them in this full disguise, and we basically had to turn off one specific person's oven, so it ruined their cooking. And I think at the time Sam was in the trolley, so I had to get in there with the trolley, pretend I was washing up, meanwhile distract someone, and then Sam gets out of the trolley and then turns off the oven, and it just it felt like a lot of these missions so ludicrous that it was just it's such a ridiculous thing to be involved in. I just loved it. I just loved it so much. It felt so mischievous, and yeah, and it's just such an amazing thing to be involved in as a 40-year-old man.
Little troublemaker.
Just a small off-camera thing. We had someone go in the same outfit as Joel had 20 minutes beforehand, so that the contestants would think it's totally normal for a cleaning person to just be walking around them. Because if it had just been Joel and no one else ever goes in like that, it would seem super weird. So you do all this stuff that never ever is going to see the light of day, just so that the sabotage has a better chance of working as well.
It's also mad how much trust the contributors put into you as well, because in that cooking show, they'd be like, I need to go and get my ingredients so we can start cooking. And we just have to say, no, you can't go out yet. And they'd be like, why? They're just the rules of the show. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll just wait there. In what world, in a cookery competition, would you stop people going to get their ingredients? They were so trusting in us. It was very helpful, but mad.
I
I
think
also
that's
feel
the
like you loved pushing it as far as you could, because Joel's mission was go in, turn the oven off, come out. You started washing dishes, picking stuff up. We were like, get out of the kitchen. You don't need to be there anymore.
I loved it. Like when there was the one where it was the pizza one, wasn't it? Where I was in at like a desk underneath someone who was making pizzas on top of my head, and then I would pop out on the chopping board, so my head was underneath the chopping board, and it's again so ludicrous. And then I just love, because I always think that in that extra 5%, that extra 10%, that's where you find that real extra laugh, that extra funny, where you're like, oh no, you know. And I love just pushing it that extra little bit and really knowing. And this is another thing, production wise, knowing where all those cameras are, so you can sort of mug to camera a little bit and be like, what's going on? Because you know you're communicating not just to people at home, but also to the people in Mission HQ. It was just that awareness of it all was just so fun. I just loved it.
That's it. It's the thrill of almost getting caught. That's the gold, isn't it? That's where you want to be.
Yeah. Paul, as a director, was the celebs being nail-bitingly close to being caught, was that ideal for you, or was it
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
thinking it would ruin the whole ruse?
Yeah, absolutely. So that, like, that's it. That's the gold. That's the actual like golden ticket. That's the nugget you want, which is the tantalizingly close to being caught. You know, that is where you are. Everyone is on the limit there, and you know it's so exciting to watch live, and you know that it's just going to be incredible telly. So we would sometimes let challenges run a little bit longer, or sabotages run a little bit longer, just to get that moment, just to allow Joel and co just to kind of flex a little bit. So yeah, that was the dream, just always being on the edge of being caught, but ideally not getting caught.
And Catherine, when it comes to risk assessments, there were some crazy stunts on the show, setting fire to things, driving tanks over the grounds. Was there anything that you weren't allowed to do?
Sometimes it's just best not to ask permission. No, we're really lucky at ITV. Like we work with some amazing teams, the health and safety team and the risk team at ITV. So really, there's very little that's off limits from that point of view. So long as, we've included it within our prep time and we've engaged, really good suppliers, which we do work with in TV. When it comes to things like SFX and creating fire, all of that is actually very controlled. And we have a lot of time in the planning stages to put mitigations in place. Even little things like having the dog show, we had to sort of pre-audition the dogs to make sure that they were all compatible with one another or that they interacted with other dogs in a nice way, because we didn't want to get to the day and have them suddenly barking at each other. It's mitigations like that to just help the day run more smoothly. I suppose the location in itself, whilst this actual location was brilliant in the sense that we had so much capacity to use all these different areas that the other guys have suggested, there were certain limitations, like things like bluebells in the woodland that are protected, and we can't even go and stand on them, and certainly not film in there. Things like that were considered in the pre-production phases, and so just being as upfront and open in the planning stages, we're able to work around the limitations that things like the location set. But to be honest, yeah, very little at this one. So it was great fun.
Wow. And Diego, did that help with you balancing creative ambition with practical reality when Catherine can just sort of make it all happen for you?
I mean, it wasn't limitless budget and limitless. I wish it was. I think any show, it doesn't really matter the size or scope of it. It's a constant juggle for any show on any budget. I think this one, obviously, every department, quite rightly, wants to push everything as far as possible. Be it a bigger idea or a bigger set piece or a bigger challenge, or I need another team member or a more ambitious, whatever it might be, more cameras. It's the kind of creative that encourages you to push things as far as you can. So really comes down to just very honest conversations with the team where more often than not you have to go, can we actually afford that? Or is there a different way that we can still get the same outcome without spending the same amount of money? You don't obviously want to stifle creativity, but there's a reality to how much you can actually do. So I think from my perspective, you're always looking at the bigger picture and deciding, is this an essential thing or is it a nice to have thing? And if it's a nice to have thing, then maybe you do without. And if it's an essential, then you try and make things work. Maybe you have to borrow from another show and downsize elsewhere. So I think, you learn pretty early on in working in telly, you have to be prepared to kill your babies a lot of the time because you can't achieve everything. And you just have to go, what are the absolute things I can't do without for this show to work? And what are the things that maybe for series 2 will do?
Yeah. And so, Catherine, was that a lot of ongoing budget chats between all the different departments to see where you're at and what you can keep doing?
Yeah, absolutely that. It's with total transparency, a series 1 of any kind of entertainment format is really hard to stay on top of the costs. So the ideas are developing all the time. And you're also, as a whole team, we're all really enthusiastic to go along with those ideas. Speaking to all the technical teams and the cameras and art department and everybody and getting them understanding and fully realizing what they're being asked to do is also a really difficult task when everybody's in the moment. So you've kind of got to keep nagging at people to get their costs to you and to give thought to looking ahead to the next show. Because it's so important to know where the money's being spent and what's left in the pot to keep spending going forward.
Yeah. And you mentioned cameras. So with Paul, so much going on and so much to capture. How did you sort of cover that with cameras? Did you use a lot of hidden cameras, mostly in plain sight, as you talked about?
Yeah, so plain sight, but basically the main thing I wanted to do was just to maximize what every camera could do. So we had not that many hotheads compared to some of the other shows that I've done, like Love Island, for example, has up to like 72 cameras. But on this, we had, kind of 20 cameras in total. 12 of them, 15 were kind of remote pan tilt zoom cameras. So it was just basically positioning them carefully so that they could get the biggest range of view that you possibly could. So not like shoehorning them into a corner really where they could only see one or two angles. I kind of carefully planned where they went so that essentially we could cover as much space as possible, especially because we wanted to use as much of the estate as possible. So yeah, it was just being clever about it really, like that.
Yeah. And Joel, I mentioned in the intro that we did a pilot before filming the series. Tell us about the pilot, how that was for you, how that sort of differed to doing the series. Was there a lot of similarities, or was it quite new?
Well, like any pilot, it's everyone's learning, and I think it's really important to sort of make mistakes in a strange way because then you know how to make the real show. But it's, I mean, it was tough. I mean, I think everyone will will attribute to how tough that pilot was, not just because the scale of the show and the fact that we were all not just it's not just a studio show where you're just like point and shoot and da. There's so many different things that I think a lot of us were doing for the first time. And like you've spoken about before, Paul, with the the fact that things would be out of range and stuff like that. That happened a lot on the pilot where we were realizing, okay, we can't hear them if they're over there and if they're over there. So there's lots of moving of pylons, or what, I don't know what the technical term is. And so that was difficult. And then the weather happened. So on the pilot, it was like, I mean, it was like God hated ITV on that day, and it was torrential rain for that first day. So basically, meant everything on that first day. We didn't really film that much, I think, and then so it meant it put so much pressure on that second day that we filmed. But sometimes there's something magical to that. I think there's something where it takes like a real room of creative heads to get together, and there's something about that manic energy that created something that must have worked enough for the channel to be able to go like, oh, I think there's enough in this to make it happen. And then it's really what I really like about this process of making the pilots and then going on and making the series is that when you do make the series, you just really know what's important and what works and what doesn't, and where to spend those budgets, I'm sure. But it's just such a necessary process. And I know now in television, sometimes they're sort of forgoing the pilot and going straight to series. And I think it's just, I think I can only assume that's really tough because you get to the series and you're having to make so many more mistakes when you're making the show itself. So it was certainly really helpful to have that pilot, and also for us to figure out the show as well. And then again, it improves again when you go to a second series, fingers crossed. But I love a second series because it really feels like you can all go, oh, I know what this show is. And you often don't know what a show is when you're making it. You only know what it is when it's in the slot. Even when you're in the edit, I think sometimes you kind of like, I think it's this, I think it's this. And when you suddenly see it on television after BGT and before whatever else is before, that's when you go like, oh, it's like this, and it's like, and that's where often mistakes are made. But it's but when you get it right, there's something about that secret sauce of it being in the right slot and going through that process of pilot to show to like being there on the channel at the right time. It just, and then it really works. It's really special.
Yeah, absolutely. And Joel, do you have a sort of favorite moment or funny story from filming Celeb Sabotage that you can share?
I mean, again, I think we've clipped it up, and it's I've said this a lot when sort of promoting the show, but I haven't laughed this much on any show for a really long time. And there was lots of really amazing moments like that, but there was two in particular that just I get, since we filmed it last year, I haven't laughed that much. And it was firstly the one where you had Emma and Matt Willis in the hot tub, and their mission was to make these two contributors get out of the hot tub. And so they pretended to have this argument, and first of all them just getting in the hot tub in the first place, and they made it feel like it was after filming, so it was like, again, credit to the crew, really well directed, where they said okay, that's the end of filming, we're off, and then taking the camera off, and we're obviously still filming, and that Emma and Matt were so brilliant and made it so awkward, and those contributors were so brilliantly cast. And then they get out of the hot tub, and we're still filming them when they go into their room, and they're talking about how awkward it is. And we are just in Mission HQ, just dying with laughter mixed with awkwardness. And it was just like, ugh. And I'm really excited to again see it in that place after BGT in that slot, and just to feel that awkwardness again. And I'm excited to see that awkwardness on screen, and hopefully people who watch it will feel that too, and feel the joy that we had when we watched it in that garage. And the other one for me was when Harry Redknapp was directing, sort of the lighting director of the dog show. And Harry, just in his general character, was so funny. He's just so unintentionally funny, which is so brilliant. And you could tell him anything in his ear and he would just say it immediately out of his mouth. There was no process to him going from his brain, like his ear to his brain to his mouth. It just went straight from his ear to his mouth. So we would just say stuff and he would just say it in the room, and it was so funny. And him just going, more blue light, more red light, blue light, red light. And then it was in a pitch black room, so it didn't make any sense. It was just so funny. Again, just chaos, and I loved it.
And for me, and I think a few of the others as well, we were saying our favourite sort of disguise or mission was you dressed as an armchair. Tell us what was that like when you first saw that costume and thought, how on earth am I gonna be an armchair?
Yeah, I sort of didn't really know a lot of these costumes. I was like, I don't really understand what this is going to be. And then you get in it, you're like, oh yeah, I get it now. And it's it's actually, I think it's the funniest I've ever been, and not saying anything and being in an armchair. So I don't know what that says about me as a comedian, but yeah, it was, again, it's the same with The Masked Singer in a strange way, where it's lovely to work on shows where you feel like every department, it feels like they're at their absolute most creative. And on The Masked Singer, it feels like the costumes are so fun for the costume department to make and maintain, and the production staff love it so much because they're keeping secrets, and and the camera crew are loving it because they're like, oh, I think it's this person. I think so. Every department really is enjoying themselves and feeling really creative. And I felt the same with this show, where I felt that an art department getting a brief, or a costume department getting a brief, being like, Joel Dommett needs to be an armchair. It's such a fun thing to deal with. And then again, from Paul's perspective, it must have been so fun to film because it's so different. And I think it worked with The Masked Singer in that regard, in that I think that joy that everyone takes to make it and be in, I think really translates on screen. And I think hopefully this has it too, where every department feels so involved and so creative, and it feels exciting,
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've got a clip of that we can show.
The clients from TUI are going to absolutely love that on their faces. So if you go and see how Emma's getting on with the yoga, let's get it. Let's do it. Let's go.
This is your moment.
You've got to go, Joel.
This is your time. Joel, get yourself up and go and change it.
Quickly.
There he is. Go on, Joel.
Oh no, he can't see.
Come on, come on. You're going to need to add some water.
Get it all in.
Add water, babes. Water.
Yeah, you just put so much in.
How did your face mask go?
It was good.
It's looking good. Keep going, boy. Keep making it sticky.
It's all good natural ingredients.
But I don't think we need to overthink it. It'll be fine.
Yes, that's great. Oh no, it's on your sofa.
We'll just get him back to HQ.
Run to the bookcase. Run to the bookcase, Joel.
It's got all the right ingredients.
Well, hopefully.
This is the saddest thing I've ever watched.
This is an awkward
like
run.
the lowest point in Joel's career.
So, Paul, your favourite reveal, what was that?
Well, like Joel said, the most fun one to direct was the SAS reveal. So it was super cinematic. Obviously, we had tanks, we had ATVs, we had smoke bombs. The forest on that day just looked epic. So, long story short, that was the most fun from a director's point of view to film, and obviously we got an amazing reaction as well. So, yeah, it was. I think it rained like the night before, and it got really boggy. And this tank that came through obviously weighed however many tons. It did actually get stuck, I think, at the end of it, but we couldn't get it out for ages. But yeah, filming that was epic.
Amazing. I think we've got a clip of that one as well.
Time on SOS, Survive or Surrender, has come to an end. But there can be only one ultimate survivor. And that person is...
Ah! up. Go! Let's go! Let's go! Woo!
What is going on?
Oh, someone's fallen out.
Right, noise down. Face your front. Wait, shush.
Cadets, you look confused, and you should be. Take a look at this.
Okay. And then one last question for you all. What advice would you give to people trying to break into the industry? Joel?
I mean, the best thing now is that there's so many different avenues to get into it for everyone. I obviously can't speak for a production side, but in terms of in front of the camera, you know, you can just make things yourself. Whereas back when I first started, you had to sort of wait for someone else to say yes to you in order to be able to make things. But you can work your way up and figure out what it is you really want to do by making loads of mistakes. And my route was stand-up comedy, and that's what I really loved. And so finding something that you really love and just lean into that and do more of that and figure out what it is that you want to do, but also figure out what it is that people want from you. And then eventually, you know, TV came calling for me, and yeah, so that's what I would say.
Yeah, great. And Paul, how about you?
Yeah, just put yourself out there, be pleasant, nice to work with. People like working with people that they like. So, you know, just be nice and friendly. Don't be afraid to show your creativity. Watch and learn from people that you admire, and then kind of take that knowledge and everything that you've kind of seen to kind of develop your own style and work ethic, and then just take it from there, really. Like, open yourself up to opportunities, and opportunities will come your way.
Perfect. Bex?
I was going to say, if there are trying to get on any of these like schemes or work placements or work experience, things like that. I mean, my first job came from not getting one of those, and it opened all the doors. I've worked with so many people on work experience that I'll remember that when we need a runner, we're like, oh my God, but do you remember this person? They were amazing. And you do remember people. So you never know who you're going to meet, whoever you chat to. Be nice, be helpful, and ask questions and be unforgettable.
Great. Catherine?
So for me, it's don't undervalue, day runner roles. So, you know, don't necessarily come into this thinking you're going to walk into a full-time job straight away. And day runner jobs, they get you the example to just work on lots of different productions with a variety of different people. You're likely to be thrown into a production when it's at its busiest and where you can be really, really critical and useful and get yourself in front of the right people and make the most impact. So yeah, just crack on with those.
Great. And finally, Diego.
I would say, and I say this a lot to people sort of starting in the industry, that for me, especially when we're staffing for runners, a positive like work ethic, tenacity, enthusiasm, the right attitude counts for way more than a CV. You know, I'm not often drawn to loads of credits. If it's the right fit, if your personality is someone who, this is a people industry, you have to be a good people person. And that will drive you way further than because you've worked on 10 different shows. So you also have to be quite robust. You know, the reality is you're going to be out of work more than you will be when you first start out. So the more that you can make yourself someone that people will remember because you've asked questions, you've shown enthusiasm, you've shown an interest in the industry, they will be more likely to pick up the phone to call you for the next job.
Amazing. Well, that just about wraps us up here, sadly. Thank you to all our amazing panelists for their time and insightful answers. Make sure you tune in to watch Celebrity Sabotage on ITV1 on Saturday nights and catch up on ITVX. Thank you for joining this RTS Futures event. Do keep an eye out on the RTS website and social media for upcoming Futures events.